And it is officially the last day of July 2023. Hello everybody, welcome back to the crazy land. I'm sorry, no, tonight we're talking about the Olympics. Okay, crazy lands. You can call in, we're in Canada, 709-589-4406. 4406. We got another topic tonight we're going to cover is the Olympics. The Olympics. No air conditioning for the Olympics. Which is quite interesting, isn't it? You think they have air conditionings. It's up 35 degrees, so it's 100 degrees in Paris. And of course, the nuclear power plants use up 70% of the fresh water. In Paris, there's like 5,000 people last year died of dehydration. They couldn't use air conditioner. They couldn't drink the water because they had overheated the rivers from the nuclear plants spillover. All the fish died. The whole thing is just insane, isn't it? Good intentions. Instead of installing air conditioning to keep the housing safe and comfortable for thousands of the athletes, the victims, and because the Olympics, they don't get nothing out of it. The gold medal means nothing. It's not going to get them, like there's no payday, right? The only people making money is the Olympics. What are they going to make this year? 1.25 million or a billion or something? The athletes will get nothing. They could actually give the athletes $1 million each and they wouldn't even notice the money missing. But no, the countries that are supporting the athletes will give them enough money to barely survive. They'll take all the accolades and the victims will go home with their gold medal that is basically useless for 99% of them. Organizers plan to rely on a geothermal system that pipes in cool water underneath the floor. We're talking about France, though. France hates everything but nuclear. So, of course, it didn't work. Oh, my goodness. We got a poll for everybody tonight. Was the Paris 2024 Olympics the dirtiest Olympics ever because it ran on dirty nuclear fuel? I think we're killing it again tonight, are we? 9 viewers, 9 likes. It is what it is. The truth doesn't deserve 2 seconds. There's only propaganda and nonsense that get all the views. We're going to get to this story. This is insane. They mimicked the Last Supper with a bunch of transvestites, bless their hearts, but it's not appropriate, right? I got to say that because you're not allowed to criticize it. It's like taboo. You're not allowed to do what they tell you. If you do anything different, then you're banished. You're no longer useful to their agendas, whatever happens to be each year. Their assurances the system was capable of keeping indoor temperatures 11 degrees cooler than outdoors did not inspire the confidence during a year that's on track to be the hottest on record. So the circumstances, if they didn't change because of dirty nuclear, global warming is dirty nuclear, right? They've been releasing atoms into the environment for 80 years on a rate most people couldn't possibly comprehend. And each of these anthropogenic man-made atoms are pulsing energy almost at the speed of light for thousands or millions of years. So we have nothing else. Carbon doesn't do that. The only thing that does that is nuclear. It was very predictable too. Paris 2024. This was the torch from 1980, I do believe. Don't quote me. I've been known to make mistakes. I guess they'll be having figure skating this year. Soccer. All the patriotic flags, the more soccer. Surprised that the flag this year doesn't have the nuclear symbol on it. Protesters have been put under curfew. Have been spied on for the last couple of months non-stop. Don't forget to give us a like on Scumbag Tube. Click around a little tiny bit, make my day. Make my day. And it's an odd position given that France has a pretty low carbon electrical grid due to most of it power coming from nuclear, but every nuclear power plant needs 2 external gas, oil, and coal plants to support it, to build it, to run it. Yeah. Who knows? So imagine, it's hard to comprehend the enormity of a nuclear power site. So in order to build this, how much electricity do you think they need? There's 9,000 people there on top of that, but you can't see them, can you? How much electricity does it take to build this? So when I tell you they need 2 gas, oil, and coal plants to build it, to run it, and then to decommission it, this is why. It uses more electricity in most cities. Well, no, oh no, it's carbon free, Dana. Do you even know? Suggest anything is carbon free is ridiculous. Without carbon, nothing can exist. If there's no carbon, we're going to look just like the moon, right? As well as experience with devastating heat waves, like the one that killed 5,000 people last summer. It's typical around 700 people die every year in France because the nuclear plants need 70% of the water. They need 1 million gallons a minute for each reactor. Well, there's the crab industry is pretty low carbon because, you know, they don't have any crabs anymore thanks to the nuclear industry in Fukushima, massive pulse radioactive fallout. The Olympic Games face a unique set of potential security threats in Paris. Organizers says everyone will be safe when everybody is safe, which is absurd to suggest that they can predict it. And so every year the police, or every time there's an Olympic, it brings a police state, and they get usually $1 billion plus budget, because the terrorists are going to get you. And so they have $1 billion budget, and they get all the best equipment. And when the Olympic is over, the police keep all of that equipment. And they turn into a dictatorship. And look at these people with their literally almost get their fingers on the triggers in some of these pictures. Right? Almost get their finger on the trigger, almost get his finger on the trigger. And so they'll bring a police state, and they'll also get rid of all the homeless, the destitute, and the victims of society, just like the nuclear industry does, right? The nuclear industry does it by getting them irradiated, because nuclear scientists are not going to go there. France plans to deploy around 35,000 police each day, peaking at 45,000 police for the opening. This is just police, not counting the Navy, the military, the Air Force, the Secret Service, the Mossad, the MI6, the CIA, the CISAs from Canada, all, because every Olympic country will send all kinds of security also. In addition, 10,000 soldiers. Another 1,800 police officers from around the world. And France will also deploy 20,000 private security personnel. And everybody's a suspect. Remember the good old days when the Olympics didn't do this? Wasn't that long ago. But they seen an opportunity for another industry. It was called a police state. So this story, the only thing that makes any sense is this was a false flag. They done it to themselves. Because they have a big security apparatus, and now they have a much bigger one. And they got all the money they ever wanted. Now, whatever they need, they can have. There's no limit. But this story is really interesting. So you see this... This was one of the spots that was allegedly took down the railway stations. And so what they did was lift the cover off. So there's a canal. And in the canal is wires. And it would look like there was 4 places or so where they lifted up the bricks, because it's that easy. It's out in the middle of nowhere. All you done was remove the bricks and threw a bunch of wood down there and set it on fire and put the brick back over it. But who knew to do that? According to them, they said the finger of the blame was pointed at the France's ultra-left groups. Not ruling out Russia or anybody else, of course, or Islamic. They said this was a planned, coordinated, and a political act. And it may have come out of the far left, but also could be from foreign interference. It could be here, it could be there, it could be everywhere. We got to increase the surveillance state, start spying on everybody. And the French Prime Minister added, intelligence services have been mobilized. There is no limit on their money spendings or authorities to find the perpetrators of the acts of sabotage. So look at, when you start really looking at this, though, I'm going to go to a different screen, so give me a moment. I want to be able to zoom in. Zoom in there. I think we got it. And this was the damage, look. It's very superficial, isn't it? So these... they're in a drain. They're designed to be soaking wet and frozen and everything else, right? And look how bizarrely flimsy this is. This is their electrical system for their railways. And when I was looking at it, I was saying to myself, I'm not really seeing the damage. I'm just seeing superficial damage. I'm sure there's damage, but I'm just saying... Because if you deny damage, of course, then you're a terrorist. I'm just saying it's very superficial damage, isn't it? And you can see up above it where somebody they just took handfuls of grass and branches and stuffed it down there and set it on fire. They didn't have to lug in all kinds of equipment. And they just grabbed the 2 hands, picked up a big brick, moved it out of the way, pulled in a bunch of leaves and bushes and you can see it up there on the bank, right? Look, all of the little tiny debris. It's just a tiny fire. See it? Actually burnt up and burnt into the little grass area. But look how superficial it actually is. Isn't that something? I was expecting, first off, I wasn't expecting them to show us what happened and detailed. Because there's going to be people like me out there going to scrutinize it. And it came up wanting, didn't it? And so what we're seeing is superficial damage, isn't it? Like, they had a fire. Someone set a fire there. But it's not like someone got there and had any sophistication whatsoever. It's going to be, how do you trace a campfire back to a terrorist group? And nobody had, normally it's like, whatever the terrorist flavor of the year is will come out and say they done it, right? Nobody's taken credit for it, which is the strangest. You know, if you're looking for some street creds, all you had to do was come out and say, we done it, we got back at the system, and then all of a sudden you get a lot of prominence in the media. Not good prominence, but they had the media feared that Putin is behind a coordinated arson attack on France's. Now, officially at the time, they didn't equate it with a terrorist attack at all. The media did, but the government didn't. And so what you're looking at, I got these arrows to point it out. It was these big bricks, you just lift them and slide them out of the way, throw a bunch of bushes and some twigs down there and set it on fire and walk away. And you can take down the whole fucking railway system. It's an easy fix on top of that. It's a dirt cheap fix, but they're going to spend another $1 billion on security, though. For the price of half a dozen matches, they got an extra $1 billion of security out of it. And who would have known to go do something like this and not claim it, though? Why would you do it and not claim it? Because that's the point of doing it, wasn't it? To bring prominence to your organization. You know, so-called prominence, right? Alleged Russian spy was arrested on Sunday after allegedly plotting to target, and they get this picture of him in a Halloween costume. I can't remember the story behind it. Was he at a museum or something like this? So again, when you look at the whole setup, so you can see the cement over there flipped upside down. How can the French government leave themselves so wide open is an interesting question too. Like, it's absurd, isn't it? It's the simplest thing to do. How is France going to address that, I wonder? And look at this. They got, how easy was it to flip it off, throw a bunch of kindling down there and drop a match in there and walk away? There's no way to trace it back to you unless you got a camera looking at it. And because you're out on the railway tracks in the middle of nowhere, there's most likely no cameras. And you can see where the so-called fires are too. Right here, they allegedly foiled an attack. There was another attack, they says there, another attack up there. So in the media, because the media is not zooming in, the media is not asking any questions, the media is not saying, why is this so vulnerable? Why is it so easy to do this? And it's not, it doesn't have the hallmarks of a typical sophisticated attack. Quite the opposite, isn't it? And the idea, they said, was to disrupt the athletes because they're dependent upon the subways and the trains. I know I got everybody confused because I'm doing shows early all week, and now I'm doing a show on a regular time. And I know most people couldn't care less about the Olympics, but you really should. There is a lot going on here that ultimately does affect you if it's in your continent or if policies are passed around after. There are fears the celebration could be spoiled as tourists, athletes, and dignitaries, useless government officials, won't be able to make it into Paris. A French media source described the arson attacks on critical cables that are very vulnerable cables, is coordinated and studied. How would you have to study that? of sabotage on strategic points on the rail network. Well, anywhere on those sections is considered, they're all the same, right? They're all, anything coming out of those loops. So everything coming up that loop, no matter where it's to, is the same cables. So obviously, this is a staged event. And we know that Iran and many of its affiliate terrorist organizations have been very vocal about their threats against the Israeli team and also against the Israeli tourists and spectators. Why would you invoke that for when none of them claimed it? Because they would have been out claiming it right away, right? Dirty media. However, one security source told the French media the tactics resembled those used by a radical far-left or environmentalist group. One security source told the French media the tactics of flipping up a lid, putting some debris down there and setting it on fire is a tactic. And it's not a tactic I've ever heard of before. And we've covered a lot of this over the years. The U.S. intelligence officials have also said that the culprits could likely be blah, blah, blah. The culprits. And that's an interesting way to frame it. And language is really important, right? Language is unbelievable, including grammar, is very important to these people. So when they use the words like culprit, French security sources, because they got lots of people who like to demonize, so why didn't they? French security sources says there's no evidence yet to confirm the hard left as being suspects. And 7 environmentalists were also arrested today after they were allegedly caught climbing trees overlooking the cycling time trial track. My goodness, monsters, eh? They were climbing trees and you didn't shoot them. I'm shocked. That's a joke, snicker. Anti-terror police were probing a threat made online against the Israeli president in the Olympics ahead of the opening ceremony. That's them attacking themselves, right? To get that kind of... Because they're looking for any kind of sympathy at this stage. I mean, they just destroyed an entire country. And they target the women and the children. Why would anybody give a fucking shit about these people for? And look at these people. Da, 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 da. They just stood around. Yeah, we need a couple of more feet of cable, 6 or 7 feet of that black shit. Oh, yeah. It's so hot here. I don't need water in my glass of ice because it's melting so quick. Actually hurts. I haven't smoked all day. One person described the attack as a nightmare. This is the people at the subway. Oh, this is a nightmare. Yeah, go down and hang out in Gaza for a few minutes. See how that works out for you. French and U.S. officials have highlighted small-scale incidents that have occurred so far in 2024 as an example of what could happen during the games, including bombs detonated outside of stadiums, attacks on soft targets like bars and clubs, as well as multiple stabbings believed to be criminal or terrorist attacks. The U.S. and European law enforcement officials say the French law enforcement is so closely monitoring the potential protest activities, ranging from local strikes to street demonstrations, so activists. They are closely monitoring activists involved in pro-Palestinian groups have occurred frequently, but French law enforcement agencies are believed to have the ability to contain them. Oh, it's insane. Like what they done in the United Kingdom during the Olympics down there was absurd. Like 2 weeks before the Olympics, they had rounded up everybody that ever said the word protest. 5 controversies at the Paris Olympic 2024, from hijab ban to the French rail sabotage in the ongoing Summer Games. Well, this is one of them. They didn't go out and insult Muhammad, the prophet, or something like that. They went after the Christians, didn't they? 2.5 billion, is it, worldwide? And why? But why would you do that? It's supposed to be, the Olympics is supposed to be inclusive, right? So why would you drive away 2.5 billion people because you didn't want them looking at what you're up to, I wonder? What's going on? Why would you do that? Well, I have a whole bunch of transvestites mimicking something sacred to 2.5 billion Christians as the Last Supper. Air conditioning battle, of course, etc. Whatever etc. means, nobody knows because you don't tell us. Paris Olympic 2024 banned on Israeli athletes. There was no ban on Israeli athletes. The Israeli athletes arrived in France amid tight security. I was wondering if they can pull a few people away from the genocide in Gaza to secure them. The French government has pumped about 1.5 billion into cleaning the river. Is it the River Seine? I can't remember. It's been polluted for about 80 years. Cleaning the river water, despite experts have raised concerns about the cleanliness of the water for swimming, because they had a bunch of rain, so now they cancelled swimming in the River Seine. And they came under fire as several migrants and homeless people were sent from Paris Centre as several migrants. It's like several thousand. I got some stuff coming up with that. It was social cleansing. The migrants are being chased off the streets and sending them out of the capital city. Not for sending them, but they're sent out of the capital. And the practice, however, has become more pronounced since the Olympics. So it's a good way to get all the recent migrants, right, what they call the invaders, now move them out to the little communities so they can bring in another couple of 100,000 just after the Olympics, I guess. And the way, like, when you look at this picture, I got no idea why they released these pictures, and they released pretty good quality. So when what I'm like, I'm zooming in on it, and I was like, well, this is not a coordinated terrorist attack. This is cross my fingers and hope it burns attack. And the damage is superficial. But yet, now they spent over $1 billion extra on security because of those 4 little spots where someone started a little campfire. Paris is at the center of the biggest security operation in peacetime, with around 75,000 police officers doing 12-hour shifts, 35,000 or so a shift, 12-hour shift, I guess. Soldiers and security on the street. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach, a notorious degenerate, had said it had full confidence in the French officials. So, like, that's another interesting thing about this is the host country is paying for it, but the IOC gets all the profits. The country doesn't get paid back. And they're not talking about... So they get all the latest equipment, the latest bulletproof vests, the latest tasers, the latest pepper sprays, the latest weapons of suppression. No group had last night claimed responsibilities for the attacks. And there was so much conflict in Gaza, in the Ukraine. Like the French, let's look at the French for a minute. France caused a civil war in Niger for over 60 years so they can get their hands on cheap uranium for their carbon-free nuclear. destroyed an entire country and is still in a civil war. They armed outside enemies and allowed them to displace the government, and for 60 years it's been nothing but a miserable existence for everybody in the country. And all of that was so France can have cheap uranium for their weapons and for their reactors. The French nuclear test, let me go backwards here. The French nuclear test, let's go over to that screen. Did I screw something up or what? Just hang on, I'll figure it out. Give me 1 second there. The French nuclear tests, I don't know. I got no idea why that's doing that. Oh. I don't know. My apologies to everybody. I do know what's going on, but I can't seem to get it to come up on that screen, which... There we go. French nuclear tests exposed the entire Polynesian population to radiation, a new study revealed. So the entire population got radiated, and the French government refused to acknowledge that anybody got radiated. It was equal to one Nagasaki bomb a week for 12 years. That's what the radioactive fallout from the French nuclear test was equal to in the French Polynesians. So why should a country like that be allowed to have any prominence? The Sahara dust is still radioactive. And you know, every year there's huge plumes of the Sahara radioactive dust covers parts of Europe, right? France must clean up the Algerian nuclear test site. They still haven't told the Algerians where they buried all the high-level nuclear waste in their country. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. France must give the Algerian authorities the full list of where the contaminated toxic waste was buried, nuclear waste. And France says nuclear is not harmful, but yet they gave their own population millions of iodine pills because they had problems with their six nuclear reactors in particular. But officially, there's no issues with nuclear, they said. Let me see here. I already done that one, didn't we? I think that was just supposed to be the introduction. I screwed up. Sue me. Olympic faces outrage over a hyper-sexualized and blasphemous drag act with a child. Let me fix this. A drag performance involving children, apparently re-imaging the Last Supper, is being widely condemned as hyper-sexualized and blasphemous by online critics. And they're doing it online, of course. It's okay for them to be online, but if you're online, then you don't really count. Even French politicians called out the show and called it an insult. And why are they showing people from India for? A drag parody of the Last Supper draws flack. It's not flack. It's, if you've done that to the Prophet Muhammad, of course they wouldn't, because they know there would be a repercussion for it. And they know the Christians would just basically cry for a little while and then they would just give up because... I mean, even today, you know how when they did get the imbeciles that came up with the desecration, starting to discuss in vomitory scenes. This is criticism. What do you know? What you know is I don't understand, and it's the tiny slither of an elite imposing their ideology on us, having completely disrespect for the vast majority of the world's population would watch that and be horrified. Undercover, and I mean, a couple of billion people are going to watch that, and a lot of these are children that are going to have their idols or covet the athletes, right? They're going to have to cover their children's eyes. And the National Olympic Committee members are sitting there, as always, in lavish hotels and suites, ordering lobsters for their chauffeurs and champagne for their mistresses, and all the rest of the disgusting expenses that they... How do you know they spent... Do you know they spent, was it $14 million to build in 2012? And then they tore it down for the Olympics. They built this thing for $40 million, and then when it was over, they tore it down and threw it in the dumpsters. Because it was too far to drive about 25 miles. So they tore it down. $40 million. I think I should bring back the guillotine for that. But of course they're joking, right? I mean, I've never seen anything on television so disgusting after the Eurovision song content. It was pretty awful. And I don't know if you saw that utterly vomit-inducing phone call of Barack and Michelle Obama and their photo. And then they got censored. The video got censored because they were saying other derogatory terms. But then the video was actually censored. Barack Obama's ego kept the cadaver standing up there so he can have his fourth term after once his third term. So he's calling Biden the cadaver. President Biden. I think that's pretty accurate, isn't it? Has anybody seen him? There's all different versions. There's one of them where he's really, really tall, just showed up. Like, they had pictures of him alongside Benjamin Netanyahu, who was like a centimeter or two taller. And then just recently when shithead Benjamin Netanyahu was in the United States to get more money for the genocide in Gaza, he was stood up alongside Biden, and Biden was probably 4 inches taller than him. It's the strangest thing I ever saw. Did Paris fail a historic moment? Oh my goodness, in every sense of the word, didn't they? It's a circus. And not a good one. It's a big vomit, is what it really is. They have Lady Vomit, or Lady Gaga, rather. But why would they use all these transvestites? And it's up to people who want to be a transvestite. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to offend people. Some people are born that way, right? Some people are born with both sexes. Especially over in Vietnam, you see a lot of that. Chemical, right? They were destroyed by Agent Orange for many, many decades. But what they done for the Olympics was leaps and bounds out of any kind of rationale. Because they know they get prominence in all the media worldwide. They're up on all the newspapers are going to puke them up. All the major TV stations are going to pump them out there. And so why use the Last Supper, though? If you're going to have a bunch of transvestites, fine. But why use the Last Supper? Why go after that? Because that's very Pacific. Does she look like an athlete to you? Right? No offense to anybody that's overweight. I'm overweight. But I'm just saying, None of it makes any sense unless they're trying to attack a religion. And why start off the Olympics by attacking a religion? I don't understand. So the Last Supper, and then that's what they were mimicking, the Last Supper, right? It's so strange, isn't it? Let me zoom in for you. Hang on. Let me back it up a bit. I'll get a frame for you in a second. And they even got children there. Children. There was no children at the Last Supper. And you got a little child over there. I got no concept of what he would do it. And they said because they thought it was funny. Some of the comments were interesting, and we got quite a few of them coming up. What is amazing if the shoe was on the other foot, if there was even a hint of being offensive, to carry on would be next level. Imagine thinking the concept of planning level. Surely you think that you're going to insult quite a few people. Opening your event by replacing Jesus and the disciples at the Last Supper with men in drag. 2.4 billion Christians on earth, and apparently the Olympics wants to declare loudly to all of them right out of the gate, you're now welcomed. Matt Walsh says, the Olympics opened by making a demonic mockery of the Christian faith. I think at the next Olympics they should have to dress the Prophet Muhammad as a drag queen or something. To all the Christians in the world who are watching the Paris 2024 ceremony and felt insulted by the drag queen parody of the Last Supper, and know that this is not France that is speaking, but a left-wing minority ready for any... Well, it is France. France knew what they were going to be doing. France didn't come out and warn the kids, the parents, to get their kids to avoid it. The Olympics is about athletes, not trans testicles. Boycott the Olympics. Sad to see this as a Muslim. Demanding a child is diabolical. And it's true. Is it acceptable to mock Islam, Hinduism? I don't understand the manipulation by people who shout about equality and acceptance by completely attacking others. If they'd done that to Islam in the same way, their lives would be in danger. What's wrong with these people in the Olympic Committee anyway? And so a lot of people were very confused by this attack. No creativity, no decency, and no sense. It's the worst opening in history. It's disgusting. Would they dare do this to mock Islam? Hindu's Times describes it as the grand opening ceremony sparks massive uproar for anti-Christianity acts. I just... I mean, it's a good way to get a couple of billion people to hate the people in the Olympics, isn't it? Probably the best way to get people to hate the Olympics is to do something like this. Let's attack all of the Christians and ostracize them from the Olympics. It's the strangest thing imaginable. And these people, in the Olympics, of course, they're very tightly connected to United Nations. They're part of United Nations, on top of that. They are an active member of United Nations. They sit on the United Nations. United Nations supports them. And the United Nations is disgusting. They're disgusting military-industrial complex. Some acts during the Paris Olympics opening ceremony sparked a massive uproar on social media. The recreation of Jesus Christ, the Last Supper, sparked outrage among many net citizens. What a disgusting thing to call people on this planet. That every one of them are better than whoever wrote that sentence. Going so far as to mock the Last Supper of Christ and have a celebration of worship to Moloch. The whole thing is insane, isn't it? The Paris Olympics is under fire for including a child in their hyper-sexualized, blasphemous rendition of the Last Supper. And an apparent child could be seen joining the drag queens during the performance. And instead of bringing people together, the planners of the event apparently wanted to mock the religion of 2.4 billion people. This is crazy. Opening your event by replacing Jesus and the disciples of the Last Supper with men in drag. Apparently the Olympic wants to declare loudly to all of them right out of the gate that they hate your guts. So I'm truly speechless. So disrespectful towards many athletes from other nations. Yeah, it doesn't actually make any sense, does it? Disgraceful, disgusting, disrespectful, and dangerous. I don't understand it either, so don't feel bad if you don't. According to the event organizers, the ceremony is the biggest in the Olympic Games history. It's the biggest ceremony in the history of 130 plus year history, and they have to come out and attack the Christians. Notably, India has a big contingency. A child rapist competing in the Olympics has caused international outrage. He was convicted and went to jail, and he's in the Olympics. A volleyball player, he met a girl, and raped a 12-year-old girl online, flew to wherever she was in her country, and raped her 3 times in a hotel room. And he said he's 19 and he was young and stupid, but I was 19, young and stupid. I didn't do fucking shit like that. More than 80, and I know a lot of people, everybody I know was young and stupid. They didn't do shit like that. More than 80,000 people signed a petition calling to ban the sex offender from the competition. But the Olympics, if they're going to have in transvestites and as their prominent act, then letting in a child rapist shouldn't be a big deal, should it? They even apologized for him. They said, oh no, he served his time in jail. He didn't. He actually only served 1 year of a 4-year sentence. He attributed his crime to being a teenager. What kind of excuse is that? So somebody was asking a prominent media, and this is her response. Wishes the child rapist good luck at the Olympics. To go down, and given that we allow people in sports to take drugs, in sports to then come back, and we allow them to compete. So this, so to ban someone, and as I said, I understand it at the time, and he served his time, she says, in jail, which is only a year out of 4 years that he served, a quarter of his sentence now, for flying to a country, taking a 12-year-old girl to a hotel room, raping her, 3 times. I'm not laughing about it. It's the gallows laugh. And then getting 4 years in jail for it on top of that. What about that child? She has to grow up, you know. She wishes the child rapist good luck, so a long time to carry. So he served his crime, so now he shouldn't have to carry his crime anymore. Of course, this is why we have... this is why they go, like, you know, you put them on a list for decades, right? So people know that they're in their communities. For that mistake, and for the rest of his life, and he will have and completely repented. He didn't repent. He never come out and apologized to the kid. He pleaded not guilty. A tough thing to punish him twice. I mean, punish him twice. I guess it's not her daughter, see? He successfully turned his life around. What are you talking about? Again, the disconnect is unbelievable. She defended him. I wish him the best of luck. You can't keep up with the craziness, can you? Yeah, would she be so forgiving if it was her daughter? Did she just compare doping to child abuse? Paris Olympics will face the highest security challenges in Olympic history. They start off by having a bunch of drag queens mock the sacred Last Supper of Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples. I think it's because they're afraid of Christians, right? They see Christians as a threat to them, or for some reason. But the Olympic organization is not supposed to be... They're just supposed to have sports venues every 4 years for people that have been lulled into complacency and dedicated their life to something that is only going to make money for them, for the IOC, International Olympic Committee. They're the only ones going to come out on top. And why are they ever going to come out on top? 8.6 million tickets sold. With 3 billion people tuning in to watch a drag show, a drag queen show. Three billion viewers. And they had the transvestite boxer got a gold medal, beat the shit out of the girl boxer who worked her whole life and had no chance of beating a male. But he identifies as a female, so the Olympics is like, well, let him in. I guess that's what they're doing, right? It won't be long before it'll be just dominated by the transvestites. You want to be transvestite, fine, but you shouldn't be allowed to go in and beat up girls. It's insane. It's simply not honest, right? It's an extremely expensive undertaking, in many cases causing more harm than good to the host cities. Oh, the police state they leave behind is insane. 2008 Beijing was supposed to cost 20 billion, up costing 45 billion. London 2012 was supposed to be 5 billion, cost 18 billion. And who got all the profits was the International Olympic Committee. They didn't shell out 45 billion in 2008. The city is stupid enough to allow them into their country did. But it's used to get rid of all the homeless and the victims of the cities. It's used to take over. The whole story is insane every time you look at the Olympics. It doesn't have any redeeming qualities whatsoever. So operating costs for Paris is just operating for a couple of weeks, right? Just the operating cost is $5 billion. The majority of that, is going to the security apparatus, right? So they need these false flag events in order to justify it, because the truth is long forgotten of what really going on. And they say, well, remember in Paris, right? And terrorist attack on the railway lines, but it wasn't, was it? It's the strangest terrorist attack I ever heard of or seen. I despise this person. I despise him. Disgusting parasite. And because of what we've seen him do at Japan, calling him a disgusting parasite is pretty fucking nice. I'm being very polite. We are delighted to see your plans include a record number of... We don't care. Operating cost includes security, and security. They built these villages. Was it 14,000 cardboard beds or something? Cardboard mattresses. Like almost $5 billion just for operating costs is... I can't even wrap my mind around what the fuck they're going to spend that much money on. And then there was things were said in the leading up to it, and that the fans, and when it comes to, how crazy the soccer is, they're literally crazy, right? They are literally insane. So, it looks like a wine bottle, don't it? The Olympic torch this year. Isn't that what it looks like? Olympic torch. Looks like, that's the comment section, I'll agree, looks like a wine bottle. The wine bottle at the end made me laugh, yeah. So here's their beds. And the idea, they said, of the beds being like that is so there'll be less sex going on. They got like 300,000 condoms are given out anyway. These are cardboard boxes. And so these so-called athletes are going to put the cardboard boxes resistant. So they're doing unimaginable stuff to the bed, and the bed is holding up. They're doing the worm, is it, or something? He's doing somersaults and handstands and 300,000 condoms. And this is one of the people behind the bids. I was watching that and I was saying to myself, because they're dressed up in $1,000 shirts and $500 pants. And they're literally, when you listen to them though, you realize these are morons. Like, they were obviously born into a certain family and they got certain jobs because of it, and then they have wealth. And so he's trying to justify the cardboard beds. And you can justify, you can say they're recyclable and everything else, but what they don't tell you is that they could have bought real beds, and then they could have donated the beds to the victims of society that are out there that don't have those luxuries. Or they could have sent them all to the orphanages in Belarus and Ukraine of the children that don't have any bed, that are abandoned because of the radioactive fallout, that are mutilated and disfigured. It was very, very disappointing. Because when I seen these people, I said, well, let's hear what they got to say. And they reminded me of 11-year-old children at best. And that's probably going as a stretch, though. Russian arrested in an Olympic plot. Now, the guy they're talking about was a doctor who quit and became a chef, has been in Paris for 15 years. For 15 years. And he's a patriot, though, from Russia. And he's probably upset because Russian athletes were disenfranchised from the Olympics by United Nations, of course. And this police state, though, is really... The people they were interviewing on the road talking about this, there's dozens of cops on every single street corner. There's dozens of soldiers everywhere with their fingers on the trigger. Lots of them got their fingers right on the trigger. Which, like, I consider it an insult when I see soldiers in public places with a finger on the trigger. That's an insult. Because if they stumble or trip, guess what they're going to be pulling on? Catch their balance. It's going to be the gun, right? Russian intelligence officer arrested, going to provoke hostilities in France. Well, see, you got to justify because you're spending probably $2.5 billion on security. So you got to have a couple of boogeymen, even though they're not boogeymen, right? A Russian chef agent who planned destabilizing acts at the Paris Olympic Games. They also got all kinds of hundreds of people under curfew and house arrest, activists that might have participated in some kind of protest, has already been ostracized from society. But the railway fires were clearly a staged event. That was a false flag. And I got to admit, there is nothing stupider looking than these uniforms. I don't understand it at all, right? They always come across as morons when you look at it. How can you respect it, right? And they created a maze of checkpoints around some of the world's most famous landmarks. Some 75,000 police officers, endless military, endless navy, endless secret service from different countries, endless private security. Well, I mean, spending $5 billion in just a couple of weeks is pretty rough. It's the biggest mobilization of peacetime. 300,000 people have tickets. They even got Snoop Dogg down there, of all people. Snoop Dogg, a criminal who killed multiple people when he was a gangster and got away with it, and is celebrated for making songs about violence against white people. A 10-meter air rifle mixed team, 10 meters, 30 feet. 30 feet with an air rifle. 30 feet. I used to shoot stoppers, pop bottle stoppers. You remember the old days, everything was stoppers, right? Before the cans came along. And we used to walk 70 paces and then prop them up with a few rocks on a rock and then knock them off. Nothing to it. Which is about 200 plus feet. So imagine shooting 30 feet and thinking that you're special. I don't get it. It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Pretty nice guns, though, isn't it? For air, these are air guns. 10 meters, 30 feet. This was interesting. A table tennis player makes the Olympic debut at the age of 58 years old. 58 years old. That's incredible, eh? Pretty impressive. Police from 41 countries also. 18,000 foreign police officers. And then look at these vehicles. Look at the top of it. That's a sound cannon. A fucking sound cannon on top of their vehicles. So the state of Qatar they're going to leave these trucks behind, of course, with sound cannons on the roof of them. Blaring silence, granny rival, bulletproof. So they're going to leave them with the French police, of course. All this gets left with the French. Always funny. Got sound cannons on their roof. And all that equipment will get left behind. You know, police out on horseback. The foreign police squads were called on not only to reinforce security, artificial intelligence surveillance at the Paris Olympics. Artificial intelligence surveillance. They're also measuring all the athletes with a 3D scanner. So they're stealing all the biometrics of these athletes. That's very interesting, isn't it? That's pretty nasty. Never give up your biometrics. Never ever give up your biometrics. And they rounded up all the homeless and destitute victims of society, and they bambushed them right out of those areas. You got to go. We got to have the Olympics. We can't have people like you, or we're trying to make. It's pretty sad. And then they got all these jets they burn. These are toxic plumes they're laying over the crowds on top of that in the city. But imagine the people in all the homes where these jets are flying over, and the elderly and the pets and everything freaking out. Why would you use, these are weapons of war, right? That's what the connotation of them is. Paris has, look at Macron. We cover him a lot, eh? He's a disgusting weasel. And there's tons of them. I've got the Paris Olympics 2024. They got so much money, they don't know what to do with it. They spent $5 billion just on security, probably. Imagine if you took $5 billion and took $1 billion and took care of these people. That's enough to give everybody that they evicted a home. That's stupid, I know. Why would you want to do that? Why have a legacy like that? Well, instead of taking all the homeless and throwing them away, we gave them all a free home. Restored their dignity. Let's do the math on it. Let's see how many homes you could have gave away for. So if you think they should have gave everybody a free home, the victims that are displaced, I gotta fight this to it. Bear with me. There we go. Let me see what we got here. So let's say $1.3 billion, $1.7 billion. If you took $1.7 billion of the $6 billion operating costs and divide that by a home for $100,000, divide it by call each home $125,000 after all the paperwork and taxes and everything. And so they could have bought homes for 13,600 people. But there wasn't 13,000 homeless, was it? That they evicted. It was around 2,000 or something. So let's say 1,600. 1,600 homeless people. They had all kinds of police to chase them, beat them up, and drag them out of there. They brought in bulldozers. They brought in bulldozers, and they bulldozed down. Right? They came. Police showed up, and massive amounts of cops showed up, and they went in. They took. You can see the bulldozers in the background. See the bulldozer up there? So let's say you gave everybody $140,000 home, all the homeless people. That's $224 million. It still left them with almost $5 billion to spend in 2 weeks to throw away on operating costs. Instead, you destroyed their lives. You shipped them outside of the area where they might get a little tiny bit of work or be able to beg for enough money to get some food. Doesn't that make more sense? I don't know. I think it does. If you think it makes more sense, give me a thumbs up on the video. They brought in the bulldozers to destroy their homes and their remains that they couldn't take with them. Threw them on buses and drove them out and just threw them off the bus. Get the fuck out of here, you scumbags. And the police had tons of money. They could have took $220 million and bought them all homes too. And look at the boats they're using for the police. It's insane. The Olympic Seine. So this is all digital. This is what they want it to look like, right? They're going to bring all the athletes on the ships. And the River Seine has been toxic for over 100 years. Toxic for over 100 years. And so this was all depictions of what they wanted to look at. It's the strangest looking thing I've ever seen on top of that, isn't it? Apologize for any background noises. And then they had a pale horse in the River Seine, which was really interesting because the pale horse and on it was death in the Bible quotes. And then they had the Last Supper with drag queens and transvestites. They had and then they had a pale horse. And on him was death or something. Remember that quote? And they showed the engineer who built it all, right? But ultimately, this is what it looked like. It was out on the River Seine, had a pale horse. Why would you do something like that, I wonder? Because everybody's going to obviously know this is the quote from a Bible of the pale horse, and on it rode death. Was that the point, I wonder? And this was a village that they built, right, for the athletes. So rather than take all the homeless they displaced to do that and discharge them hundreds of miles away, why not build that, take care of the homeless for a couple of weeks, and then move them into the village, right? Which is only going to be a fraction of the village, but at least now they got their dignity. They're more inclined to go get a job and pay their bills, and they have roots, they have home, which is the biggest. The reason they're homeless is because not because they want to be homeless. Nobody wants to be homeless. The new Olympic Village. They got rid of all the homeless so they can build homes for 2 weeks, and then they can sell them off and make a fortune on them after. It's a degeneracy every step of the way, isn't it? $220 million of their endless budget would have bought everybody to displace a brand new home. Brand new. And of course, if you're going to bring in athletes and give them these homes for 2 weeks, they're going to be furnished. They got money to throw away, and that's exactly what they're going to do with it. They're just going to throw it away. They built these villages. This is a model of it. And then they're going to have the biggest, greenest big city in Europe. Saying this is, and this was an artist rendition. I got no concept. The water is unbelievably filthy. There was no way they can. There was no way they can filter the water in that short time. I don't get it. I don't understand the contempt rate. Backlash's drag queens display parody of the iconic Last Supper painting. And then he's as gay as you get. It's okay to be gay, but his job was to justify it. His job was to justify that. You're blowing it out of proportion. Now, how about if they were there mocking the gays or belittling the transvestites? What would the uproar be like then? I wonder. It would be insane, right? They would come out and public apologize. Vulnerable kids are watching the open ceremony around the world. Next time they will have a massive drag Muhammad just to include everyone. You know that's not true, right? France has been subject to a large-scale sabotage. Trains are standing. The Olympics are under attack. None of them said the sabotage was directly related to the games, by the way. But here's the media saying that the Olympics are under attack in the headlines. And so France increases its budget for security. The whole story screams staged event, false flag, right? Arsonist attacks the high-speed rail system. The fires are predominantly set in pipes containing critical signaling cables for the system known as the TGV. Cops were walking around with their fingers on the triggers. The Paris mayor said the damage would not affect the ceremony, in which the 7,000 Olympic athletes were due to sail down the Seine. It's just the whole story screams staged event, don't it? None of them said the sabotage was directly related to the game. That's quite the statement, isn't it? How can you make that statement? How can you quantify the statement without knowing all the facts? When that's the exact opposite of what I was expecting them to say. But officially, the media all said it was a terrorist attack, but the government was saying it had nothing to do with the games. The French authority did not publicly comment on who might have carried out the attacks or why, and none of them said the sabotage was directly related to the games. The Prime Minister said intelligence services were mobilized. They were given an endless budget to find the arsonists, whose attack he described as premeditated and calculated. Calculated. Lifting the lid, a cement lid, off a drain where waterproof cables are to, and putting a bunch of debris and foliage and litter down there and setting it on fire. Yeah, I say you done it yourselves to increase your budget. The quickest way to get an extra billion. He said the evidence indicated a desire to seriously harm the French people. He said the CEO of the National Railway Company, who estimated the number of customers affected at 800,000 people, the places were especially chosen to have the most serious impact, since each fire cut off 2 lines. But I showed you the pictures earlier, right? Zooming in and everything else. And it doesn't add up to what they're saying at all, does it? None of them said the sabotage was directly related to the game. Only the media's were injecting that first to get clicks. And to have this kind of, here's opportunity to demonize some of the players that our government might want us to demonize. The places were especially chosen to have the most serious impacts, since each fire cut off 2 lines. Well, when you look at it, there's zero possibility that's what happened, isn't it? The railway company sent a statement that would ensure transport for all Olympic delegations without elaborating a stepped-up ground and air surveillance, including with 50 drones. So they also had another 50 drones in the air and could carry prison sentences of up to 20 years. And repairs are being made as police conduct forensic tests. Again, I showed you the pictures of what happened earlier. These were simply fires. Let's go back and look at those pictures again for a minute. Because so when you hear what they just said and you look at the pictures that are coming up, I'm sure. This is clearly a false flag, though. Up. Here we go. Let me get back to where I left off first. Okay, here we go. So when you zoom in on it, this is what you're seeing. I gotta switch gears for a second, hang on. I forgot I was still in, this was a strategic, look at this, it was just strategic, but it's not, it's random, right? The fire is not strategically going to burn anything. It's just a random, whatever burns, right? And whoever made those statements from the government would have seen these pictures. This wasn't a strategic attack. Their words were that, and they just removed the cover. These were unsecured trenches with waterproof cables in them. Anybody could have done it. All you got to do is lift up one of the plates, throw in some garbage or some tree branches, which is what they done by the looks of it, and set it on fire. It doesn't look like they poured gasoline in on it or something like that. It looks just like there was no way to trace it. And then they invoked that single person from Russia. All the media ran with that story. French authorities said they foiled several plots to disrupt the Olympics, including arresting a Russian man on suspicion of planning to destabilize the Games. They said about 1,000 people suspected of possibly meddling on behalf of a foreign power have been blocked from attending the Games. So 1,000 people weren't allowed to go to the Games. She said, we spent 2 hours without water, without toilets, without electricity. What about the people in Gaza? What about all those homeless that kicked out of the city, you fucking cunt? This was an artist who said the first gold medal should go to the firefighters who put out the fires to get the trains running again. And you can see the firefighters with a train under their arm and a piece of the track and some of the wires in their hands, gold medals. I like this one where they had using the famous tower to do a high jump. And on Friday, the French airport on the border with Germany and Switzerland was evacuated in the morning, shut down for safety reasons, briefly. It wasn't clear if there was a connection to the railway attack. This wasn't a railway attack, though, was it? None of them said the sabotage were directly related to the games. Everybody should be proud of me tonight. I'm on time tonight. I started coming up 2 hours early, like I've been doing all week. I'm actually on time for a change. On regular schedule. It was so hard to be on regular schedule tonight. And I was like, do I do a show on the Olympics? But then I realized all the stories are calling the Paris Games carbon free. But that's not what's going on, is it? Was Paris 2024 the dirtiest Olympics ever? Because it's running on dirty nuclear power. I explained that quite a bit in the beginning, by the way. The opening of the Olympics in Paris shows the collapse of Christian civilization. I got no concept of why they would do that. I wonder why they done that. Why was it necessary to take it to that level? Why does the Olympics hate the Christians so much? Why does the committee hate the Christians? And I know this is not my regular show, and I apologize to anybody that was hoping for a regular show. I will, hopefully, tomorrow night do another show, and it'll be a regular show. But I got a long way to go in my recovery, I can tell you that much. I know you look at me and say, well, Dan, I don't see nothing wrong with you. You look normal to me. I look the exact same way now as I did when I had cancer, right? You can't tell. And I disrespect anybody who says stuff like that. And a few people have said that to me. Put those comments out there over the last week. I was a little bit saddened that people would do something like that. I beat cancer. I treated it with DCA and chlorine dioxide, which is a disgusting way, by the way, to drink. But we beat it. The International Olympic Committee apologized on Saturday. Really? They didn't have an apology ready to go? They really didn't think people were going to get upset? They didn't really think anybody was going to fucking mind? They didn't think that would bother fucking anybody? Really? Really? You didn't think anybody was going to notice it? You think anybody was going to say, what the fuck is wrong with you? Really? Does anybody really think that? Anybody really think when they were doing this, they were like, oh shit, this is going to go crazy? You think there's a single fucking person that didn't have that thought and didn't say that out publicly? So tomorrow's going to be fireworks. You really think nobody fucking thought that when they were doing this? You really think all these people weren't laughing their fucking ass off the day before? Oh, we're going to have a fucking ball tomorrow. The Christians are going to go lose their fucking minds. You really think they weren't saying that? If you think they were saying it, give me a thumbs up. The opening of the Olympics in Paris shows the collapse of Christian civilization. No, it shows absolute fucking contempt for everybody and everything from the International Olympic Committee. Nothing but contempt, is it? Major Andrew Fox, Paris 2024 Olympics will be the most threatened games in history. And if you look up the nuclear power plants in France, they're all surrounded by farms. And all the nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools to those farms all day long. That's the quickest way to get leukemia is eat food from those farms. or heart problems, or liver problems, or lung problems, or respiratory, or pituitary, or thyroid, or adrenaline. This Olympics will be held under a threat level like no other. I think they had all the security because they knew that when they pulled the trigger and put that out there, there was going to be blowback, and they were expecting anything. This is why they had the extra security, and this is why you see those particular connotations that this Olympic will be held under a threat level like no other in history, because nobody else in history would ever do something like that. Islamic terrorists vowed to carry out attacks on the Paris game. But what it turned out was the Olympics carried out attacks on the Christians worldwide, didn't they? That's a fucking fact, isn't it? Armed police with their fingers on the trigger. Why they got their fingers on the trigger for? He's shitting himself. That's why he's afraid that one of the terrorists are going to get him. The French authorities are facing threats wherever they turn. Argentina gets violent welcome from France during the Paris Olympics. So what happened was fans booed Argentinians, and they said they got violent during the match. What happened was an Argentinian had put out a song or video mocking, I can't remember the story, and so the fans littered the field with garbage and plastic bottles and disrupted the games, and so they kicked everybody out. They kicked everybody out. All those fans got kicked out, you see? And he came back and finished the games with nobody in the stands. Some ran on to the... Like, do you think any of the fucking soccer players were worried about this kid? Does anybody really think any of the soccer players were worried about that kid? But the way the media told the story, you wouldn't know if there was 2,000 people rushed, mobbed the players and beat them up or something. But then they show you these pictures of these fucking children out on the field. Look at the police. Look at the riot police and everything else. Look. They're literally the stupidest, lowest IQ people you're ever going to fucking meet right there. It's like literally below 70, every one of them. I apologize. I just realized I was swearing again. Damn it. Dina. Anyway. We got a show, man. That's pretty good. All right, it's time. That's got to be pretty good. I got to get something for that. A little thumbs up for that. Don't worry about it, folks. I don't give a fuck. I don't mind that stuff. After Fukushima launched research expeditions on the Pacific Ocean, you can see some of the boats from my fleet. That's the three beauties right there. And I went out and we spent 4 to 5 months a year for 6 years doing research expeditions in the Pacific Ocean from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. But that shot here, people don't understand, not that shot, but this shot here, a lot of people don't understand the difficulties I was having. You can see I got another, so we got the underwater drone, but there's another drone in the air flying right there, and that's wrapped around my neck. So I have 2 controllers. I'm too old for that shit. And So after these reactors in Japan melted down, they covered the whole planet in radioactive fallout. And what we discovered was all the species to the left have been exterminated. We went back for 6 years to see if they recovered. And if you're here about the Olympics, you probably haven't seen any of this stuff. And this is the reason we talked about the Olympics tonight, in order to get you here so you can see this stuff. Because that's the only way I was able to get you here, right? And tell the truth. You know it's true. You fucking know what I'm saying is true. These species are exterminated because of radioactive fallout. There used to be 7,000 highly visible species in the tidal zones. They're gone. We went back for 5 more years after, and the species never came back. This is an extinction event. This is 19.5 days of radioactive fallout. And we are here educating the population on this topic. We are doing research expeditions in the Atlantic Ocean. And remember, the media came out and pretended they were in Reactor 4. They done that because Fukushima is an extinction event. Not only that, Japan is poisoning youth worldwide. They never stopped growing food in the prefectures. And these 14 prefectures I highlighted were banned by 55 countries for a decade. There's endless studies of the radioactive fallout. We've done the research expeditions year after year after year through great expenses, great harm. I was attacked the entire fucking time. I still am. Now I'm ostracized, literally ostracized. Literally ostracized. And I have, 14 people on my show or something? 14 people on the show I've been doing for over a decade. But we have to try. Somebody has to be here and have a conversation, right? And I hope you spend time. You can go through my playlist and find out more information about this extinction event. Would you rather have the species on the left or the Olympics? If you'd rather have the species on the left, give me a thumbs up. I know, I'm just stalling. Did I play that song? Let's play it again. Let's close the poll down. I forgot I played the song. My apologies. Was the Paris 2024 the dirtiest Olympics ever because it ran on dirty nuclear power? I explained that earlier in the show, and if you're joining me later in the show, and the answer is a resounding yes. Yeah, thank you everybody. Hugs for everybody. Good night everybody. And we'll see everybody tomorrow night, last show of the week. There's no guarantee I'll make it. I'm pretty busted up, but I'm gonna try. I do have shows ready to go. Yee doggy. Let me get back. We're almost through this now. Yeah, we're gonna play that outgoing song again. Why not? That's how it goes sometimes. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show. Take care, folks.